I quit topical minoxidil and I think you should too. So I've used topical minoxidil on and off since I was about 20, 21 years old. I remember driving to Walgreens, buying some of the sprays. It was like super greasy and my hair looked awful afterwards.
Yeah.
It looked like minoxidil head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I still see it on some guys. And then I tried the foam after that, and then that had this funky smell. And I remember this girl that I dated, she was like, that's like the smell of you. She smelled some of it, and she's like, oh yeah, that's like what you smell like. You smell like this minoxidil foam. That
Wow.
you know, that's like what reminded her of me. Anyway, hopefully some other good stuff did too, but that's all she told me. So fast forward a little while later, and I got on a topical minoxidil finasteride solution that I was also trying to use because I was scared of oral finasteride because I wasn't as well educated as I probably should have been, maybe naive or something. The more that we've learned over the course of making these videos for like 10 years, the more I realize that oral medications are so much easier to use and actually work way better than topical medications. And actually, I recently found out that huge percentage of guys, I think it's close to like 50% of guys, actually don't even have enough of the enzyme that's needed to convert the topical minoxidil into positively affecting their hair. The enzyme, it's called SULT1A1 or SULT1A1. And a lot of guys don't have enough of this enzyme, which totally makes sense. I think I'm probably one of those guys because the topical minoxidil never worked very well for me. That said, it also could just be the way I was using it. It's actually very difficult to get enough of the topical minoxidil onto the scalp. And so I remember as I was using it, it would just, a lot of it got in my hair.
Yeah.
Did you have that same experience?
Totally.
It's like hard to get it into the actual scalp, especially if you have any hair there.
Yeah, and at night, you know, it's kind of okay. I mean, I was single at the time, really young, and I'm trying to put it on. And at night, I was okay, but then you got to do it twice a day. So in the morning or before you go out, you know, you want to look good. You want to look as good as you can. You don't want your hair all messed up. So now you're kind of like faking it, right? You're kind of, oh yeah, I'm putting it on, but I don't want to mess up my hair.
Yeah.
So when you go to rub it into the scalp, so it kind of dilates or vasodilates, whatever they call it, it just kind of messes up your hair. And I never wanted to do that. It was really annoying.
You want to get on medication or use treatments that you can consistently use, because that's the only way any treatment works, is if you consistently use it. And so that's why we formed the actual company Locklab, which is locklab.co, is to sell this oral medication that we've both been using for, I've been using for close to 5 years. My brother has been using for 5 years. You've been on it for even longer.
Yeah, 8 years.
And so it was just so easy to actually be compliant with this medication. And we realized we were getting a huge boost over the topical treatment. So I actually was using at that time, before I got on the oral finasteride minoxidil combo pill that is Locklab, I was using topical for like a year or two before that. And I noticed a significant positive difference in my hair when I got on the oral treatment. So it was like very obvious that oral was working better than the topical.
I've seen patients like that, Dave, not a lot, that are very compliant. Now, my question is, how long can you be compliant for, right? I mean, you're a guy who takes care of himself, your food is all organic, all that stuff, so I appreciate that. But, you know, when it comes to, you know, you're a world traveler, you forget it, or you got to pick it up in another country, or whatever the case is, you're skipping days, you're skipping weeks. So even those of you that can be really compliant, and I actually admire that.
Yeah, of course.
How long can you do that for? So, and this is a fact. This is not something that we wish you wrong or curse you with. You're just not going to keep using it. It's just too hard to use.
So if you do want to take the medication that we're on, that we feel is the best hair loss medication that's ever existed, we now sell it through Locklab, locklab.co. Lock in your hair today and reach peak hair regrowth. And if you want to use the code FF50, that will get you half off your first order. I have had 5 hair transplants, and this is why I need one more. We're going to be making a video a year, 5 years from now, documenting my latest hair transplant. I'm sure of it, because I'm just not ever happy with my hair. It's just like, I always want more. It's not perfect. I look at like my crown here. There's like this kind of area where it's like a good amount thinner, and I have to comb it a certain way to have it look really good, you know? And I don't like that. It's kind of annoying. Now, am I satisfied? Am I happy with it actually? I would say I'm content with my hair the way that it is right now. It's not something I regularly think about, but like when I'm in that position, I'm combing my hair for like a show that I'm gonna be doing or something like that, I'm like, oh, this is taking like a little work. Like I would love to have 1 more hair transplant, maybe 2 more hair transplants. I would love for my hair to be absolutely perfect. And I don't know if that's ever gonna happen, but I would love that. So I was asking Steve, like, is anyone really ever happy with their hair transplant? With all the guys guys that come in, obviously they're happier, right? Like all my friends call me that I recommend to go to Dr. McGrath. They're all very happy with the work. None of them are complaining. They're very like, oh my God, my hair looks so much better now.
Yeah.
But like, if they could snap their fingers and make it twice as dense, if that was even a thing, like,
I am inevitable.
I bet they would, you know?
Yeah, I think it has to do, David, with we get used to how we now look. You know, I mean, you were pretty bald, right, at 25.
Yeah.
How old are you now? 39?
39.
Yeah, 14 years ago. Now, you didn't look that much older because you have your really young-looking face, you know? But I mean, come on. Like, you could pass for mid to late 20s right now, right? So with a bald head, I don't know about that, right?
Yeah, no, definitely not.
So you get used to what you look like. You're now David DiMuzio with a really cool head of hair, but you're also an A-type personality that always wants to improve on things, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, this is me now. And yeah, I got a little bit of thinning in the crown. I probably could use a little bit more on this one side. And that's just how we are. That's how we're built.
It's true. You become accustomed to what you are. So now, like, I'm a guy with a really good looking head of hair. I'm not a balding guy. So now I want to be a guy not only with a really good looking head of hair, but like perfect hair, you know?
I like to kind of tongue-in-cheek say that, you know, there's no such thing as a perfect head of hair or a perfect hair transplant. I worked for years in the Chelsea area of New York. In some of the gyms I went to were probably the most beautiful men in the world, like male models. They're like fitness models on the cover of magazines, and they're miserable.
Yeah.
You know, because they're so good looking that there's nothing more to move up to, and they're finding these little flaws. I mean, this is just human nature, right? So when I look at you, I'm like, wow, I'm really jealous of your hair. And then you look at me and you're like, Steve, you've improved so much, but we're both sitting here talking to each other going, maybe we could use one more hair transplant.
Yeah.
It's kind of strange.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, in my life in general, I absolutely love my life. Like, if you were to ask me to switch lives with virtually anyone on the planet, I'd be like, absolutely not. My life is amazing. I have incredible friends. I have lots of money. I have beautiful daughters. I have incredible brothers that we started a business with. Like, I spend most of my days doing things that I absolutely love to do. I'm able to help people through this channel. I mean, like, my life is literally like ridiculous.
I would agree.
And yet I want it to be better. Like, I want to have way more money. Like we were talking about yesterday, I was like, if I had like $10 million more, I would stay at like way nicer hotels. I wouldn't be at the Red Roof Inn. No offense, Red Roof, but you got to up your game. I'd fly first class everywhere. Currently, I don't fly first class basically anywhere. So like there are things that I would definitely improve, and I want to get there. You know?
Well, I think that if this helps you out there, if you're like us, is to take a step back. I can say this because I got you by a few years, and just really appreciate like what you have and where you are, all those things in life. And I think it just kind of leaks out and over toward our hair because men, you know, and we age just like women do. And by the way, I deal with a ton of women as well, and they're all saying the same exact thing. My ponytail is 1/3 of what it used to be. Meanwhile, these girls are like incredibly beautiful.
It's true. Yeah, I know so many girls that have just amazing, gorgeous hair, and they're like, oh, but my hair's thinned out so much now. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Your hair looks amazing. You know?
Yeah, they just can never have enough kind of beauty to keep looking at themselves. I'm not even saying the ones that are like over the top crazy. I'm talking about just, this is life, you know, it's a competitive world out there. So yeah, we all want to always do better, make more money, live better, feel better, lift more weight, get bigger biceps. I can't get taller. How come that's not possible? But you know, bottom line is I think your hair looks great. You think my hair looks great. We think your hair looks great. So let's enjoy our hair.
If you're watching this right now, then you are on your way to having a very good looking head of hair. I want Steve to share his story with us because Steve was not the modern day hair loss miracle that exists right now. We're gonna get into that in a minute. He is a hair loss dinosaur, so to speak. But you know what? When you look at the top of his head and I look at him right now, he looks great. Like his hair actually looks awesome and is a really good looking guy, and he comes from like an even more difficult time. So I want to kind of discuss that and then where we're at right now and why whoever is watching this, the chances that you can have a really good looking head of hair is very, very high.
Yes, so David, thank you for those kind words. I had a really rough time. You know, for those of you that don't know, I started losing my hair when I was 17. I was bald at 18. By the time I was 19 years old, I started to look into hair transplants. I had 3 plug procedures.
These are like the worst procedures, you know.
Yeah.
They're like plug procedures.
like nasty, like doll's head procedures. And that didn't work out too well. I actually got lucky because my surgeon, who was just kind of learning to do this, he put the hairline higher wire, which was what you're supposed to do in those days. In my mind, I wanted my hair that I just lost. I was just 17 years old. It was really hard. So a couple years later, I was like, you know what? I've got more money for this. This is not for me. And I put a wig on my head. I wore that wig from age 23 to 30, and I really liked how it made me look. But when they took that wig off to kind of touch it up or do whatever they do, color the hair, trim the hair, I mean, looking in that mirror and seeing myself go balder and balder through life into the mid to late 20s, early 30s, it was really depressing. But as soon as they put that wig back on, I was back in business. I knew at some point I'd have to take that wig off. I'm just one of these guys that I couldn't get older and still wear something on my head like that. So by that time, it was when they were starting to do smaller strip procedures. And by the time I was 38 years old, David, 38, that's when alopecia came out. So I had started losing my hair at 18 and it wasn't slowing down. And I didn't start taking the finasteride alopecia until I was 38 years old. So I call it like, you're gonna ask, like a Norwood 5, and my hair plugs weren't looking good. I skipped the part, I had a few scalp reductions. That's very painful. They don't work. All that stuff was going on, the wig's off my head, and now I'm back in my life at close to 40 years old where people are saying, hey man, you used to have a nice head of hair, now you're going bald.
Yeah.
After all that. So back to the drawing board, got on the medication, started doing the smaller procedures. And then if you watch some of these videos that David and I had put out maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, you'll see the best that they could do, the best that I could get, which it was okay. I wasn't bald, but I really didn't like the way
It was a very high hairline.
We always used to make excuses for me because like, well, Steve, he started so young and he lost his hair so young, he couldn't use the medicine. So I was always like, hey, look at him, don't look at me, because like that's the modern day. So anyway, recently, a couple years ago, Dr. McGrath did my hairline. He did an injectable treatment in my donor zone and made my hair super strong, put 2,000 grafts on my hairline, and I am a survivor. Like, I'm able to sit next to David DeMuzio on his channel and not just talk about his hair. We can kind of talk about my hair too.
Yeah, definitely.
That's really cool. So here's my point and David's gonna take over from this point and talk about modern day, but if I survived all that, if I made it to this point in my life after suffering before 20 years old, you can do the same in regards to how David is. You just have to follow the program. There's so much more hope from you than there was for me.
Yeah, same me starting around Norwood 5, this is sort of area. When I was in my early 20s, I'm now 39 years old, and now I am able to have a good looking head of hair. And yeah, is it perfect? Absolutely not. It's not perfect. Have I had a bunch of surgeries? Yes, I have. I've made a lot of mistakes. I got off medication for a long time, which I shouldn't have. But even with all that, I even had like a surgeon that after the surgery, he got committed to a mental institution and probably didn't do the best job on that particular surgery of mine. So I've made plenty of mistakes, and still I'm able to get to the point that when I get my hair cut at a hair salon, I often have hairdressers and they're like, wow, you have great looking hair. And it always just shocks me. I'm like, I shouldn't be a guy with great looking hair. So if I can be from that point, Steve can be from his. Joe Biden, even our president's not considered a bald guy. And he's went bald when he was very young. There's lots of photos of him. So I mean, if those people can sort of start from there, then no matter almost how bald you are, if you're able to get on medication, find the right hair transplant surgeon and stick with that and get a few surgeries and be able to afford a few surgeries and maybe willing to use some powder in your hair every now and again to make your hair look a little extra good, you can actually have a great looking head of hair that is your hair for the rest of your life. And I think that's a really exciting and inspiring thing. But if you want to save the most money, then you need to get on the medication as fast as possible, because that's going to save you tens of thousands of dollars. And right now with the combination oral minoxidil, oral finasteride pill that we sell through Locklab.co, which Steve and I have both been on for about 5 years, it's actually the best medication that's ever existed. And it's sort of just taken us that extra little ways with the oral minoxidil instead of the topical, just making it very easy to be compliant and actually use regularly, giving our hair that extra boost that it needed. And boy, I mean, it's like there should be no more bald guys at this point. Like, no one needs to go bald. I mean, there's always going to be a minor exception. I mean, people with special medical conditions and things like that, you should very rarely see a bald guy at this point, And
even the worst of the worst, I think that's what I was. Looking like this right now at this point in my life, like on the scale of 1 to 10, I was like a 1.2. Like I was really bad shape. So when you see these videos and see how we try to inspire you, it's real. I mean, if I'm like this after all that, He's like that after everything he's been through. And if you just jump on that medication early and then let nature take its course, or should I say not take its course, go do what David is talking about, go see that hair transplant specialist, and man, goodbye bald.